This is the audio-described version of our Honeybees in Joshua Tree National Park video. The video opens with a national park ranger named Michael in a gray button-up shirt, green pants, boots, and a flat-brim hat, standing in a desert landscape on a trail. Behind him, the trail leads to steps and a hillside covered in desert vegetation. On his right are green fan palm leaves.
Hello, I'm Ranger Michael, and I'm the wildlife ecologist here at Joshua Tree National Park. It's summertime here in Joshua Tree, and I'm here to remind you it's also honeybee season. Contrary to popular belief,
the scene changes to a close-up of honeybees flying and crawling on a rock.
Honeybees have not been part of our ecosystem for very long.
The scene changes to a close-up of a honeybee flying and landing amongst yellow desert flowers.
During the 17th century, Europeans brought them.
The scene changes back to Michael
To help pollinate crops and provide food for early settlers. While honeybees play a very important role for today's modern agriculture, it's important to remember that native ecosystems like this.
The scene changes to a wide shot of a sunny desert landscape filled with vegetation. There are mountains in the background and a person walking amongst the vegetation.
This relied on native pollinators well before the arrival of the European honeybee.
The scene changes to a close-up shot of a moth sitting on a small white flowering plant.
These native pollinators have been things like
a still image of a bumblebee on a yellow flower is shown.
Bumblebees, birds.
A still image of a hummingbird sitting on a small branch is shown.
Birds, and even
a still image of a bat flying out of a cave is shown.
Bats in Joshua Tree National Park.
The scene changes back to Michael.
So, what are they doing here?
The scene changes to a close-up shot of honeybees crawling and flying around a wet rock.
For the majority of the year, bees go unnoticed in Joshua Tree.
The scene changes to a close-up of a honeybee crawling on small white flowers.
Tree National Park. But during the summertime,
the scene changes back to Michael.
Temperatures rise.
The scene changes to a small PVC pipe dripping water with numerous honeybees flying and crawling around it.
And water becomes scarce, and bees
the scene changes back to Michael.
May become pesky. Honeybees need to seek out water. They use this water to produce honey and to even cool their hives when temperatures rise. This water can come from a number of places. It could be your water bottle that's condensating a little water.
The scene changes to honeybees crawling and flying around a window pane in a bathroom.
But it also could be our restrooms.
The scene changes to a close-up of a honeybee crawling on a person's hand.
In the park, and other things like human sweat. But the
scene changes back to Michael.
May also come from things like
the scene changes to a close-up of a purple flower.
Flowers.
The scene changes to a wide, time-lapsed shot of a desert landscape filled with Joshua trees, boulders, and other desert vegetation. There are incoming rain clouds moving in the background.
Rainwater, or even
the scene changes to a view of a group of fan palm trees.
A desert oasis like this one that we're in.
The scene changes to Michael underneath the fan palms, looking up into the canopy.
In Cottonwood.
The scene changes back to Michael on the trail.
Because of this attraction to water, you will find that honeybees congregate.
The scene changes to a time-lapsed wide view of cars moving and parking in a parking lot in a desert landscape overlooking mountains.
In parking lots, and maybe.
The scene changes to a view of the underside of a parked car with many honeybees flying underneath it.
Even cling to your shirt on that real hot day.
The scene changes to a closer view of the pavement where this car is parked, where honeybees are congregated around a small puddle.
Looking for a bit of sweat. The good thing
The scene changes back to Michael.
The thing is, these honeybees don't want to sting you. And actually, for most people, they don't pose any kind of threat. However, folks that have severe allergic reactions or allergies to bee stings should be prepared for a visit to Joshua Tree and avoid these bee areas as much as possible. When honeybees become too numerous and start to congregate in areas in the park staff will actually close these areas for your protection. The idea here is to allow the honeybees to...
The scene changes to a close-up of honeybees crawling and flying around wet-soaked rocks and sticks.
Find new locations away from the...
The scene changes to a close-up of honeybees congregated in a small rock crevice.
These visitor areas to find water.
The scene changes back to Michael.
While water is scarce in the desert, honeybees still have the ability to...
The scene changes to a close-up of a honeybee flying and landing amongst yellow desert flowers.
To find water, just like our bighorn sheep.
The scene changes to a small butterfly opening and closing its wings while sitting on small white flowers until it eventually flies away.
Butterflies, and even our foxes.
The scene changes back to Michael.
When visiting Joshua Tree,
the scene changes to people walking along a paved sidewalk in a desert landscape surrounded by vegetation and overlooking mountains.
In the summertime, be sure to check for any closures related to bees.
The scene changes to a warning sign taped to a larger park map sign that says Active Bee Area.
Also, please follow any warning signs you may see when driving around the park.
The scene changes back to Michael.
If you are concerned at all about bee activity in the park and your visit to Joshua Tree, please contact a ranger because there are alternative areas in the park where you can enjoy it bee-free.